Check 1 2, check.
Yo, what up, peoples? We out here with another episode of Go the Mission. I am Goriako Corey Johnson. I'm your host. And you know what? It is a beautiful evening out here in St. Joseph, Michigan, yet again. Getting close to the end of the summer here, and it's still nice, but I'll take it. But just here dropping in with a short episode to propel you into the weekend. So, some of you know, I might have talked about it on here before, but I've been a member of the gymnastics team here at Andrews for the last couple of years, and I have definitely loved it. Coming to Andrews from Palau wasn't easy, but gymnastics was one of the things that helped me to find my place and a place here at Andrews. And it's wild because the first year was definitely amazing. I learned a lot, made a lot of good friends, and then COVID hit, which derailed the end of that school year. I felt like it was unfinished business for sure because we got cut off in March. We missed out on the spring break trip just a few days before we were actually planning on going. And of course, we ended up missing on Home Show, the big end of the year finale, the pinnacle of a gymnastics team's year. So we go through the summer, we get to year 2, back at it again. But this time under strict COVID protocols, we had a smaller team, and with good reason. We obviously weren't really able to tour around, but we did have some creative video production to get the routines and skills out there for everyone to see. Obviously, as I mentioned, it wasn't the same, just wasn't the same, but it was still a good year. So we get through another summer, and here we are yet again for another time around. And this time the game changes up again. I'm working full time in the dorm now as an assistant dean, and went down to halftime as a student. And that leaves just about no time for gymnastics, but I still love it, and I'm still trying to be involved in any way that I can. So thankfully, it looks like I'll still be able to be a part of the team as a chaplain. And it's funny because in our first practice, someone threw out the name Chaplain Dean Corey. And that's one of those, if you know things, but don't worry, I'm going to enlighten you. Because when I came back to Palau the second time, they called me Chaplain Coach or Coach Chaplain Corey. So it's funny because I keep coming across these different points in life. They're like these full circle type moments. And it's really awesome to see. But at the same time, many of the time, actually, it feels like I'm kind of a spectator in my own experience. The last couple of years since coming back to the States, I've come with purpose. And I mentioned how I kind of found my purpose in service in the mission field. I still feel like I have purpose, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I'm not really 100% sure on what that purpose looks like acted out in my life here and now and going into the future. So, a couple weeks ago, we were having our residence hall training, check the videos from the experience in Holland, Michigan. And while we were there, someone mentioned to me why I hadn't considered mission aviation to partner with my desire to go be a missionary. And I really had to ask myself the same question. I like the idea of pairing flight with missions. It seems like a very practical right hand to have along with the theoretical knowledge that I'm getting in the seminary right now. And so decided to pursue it, look into a little bit, and ended up having lunch, kind of an interview type meeting with one of the pilot instructors here, as Andrews has a flight education program. And it was really informative. I learned a lot, but there were a couple of things that really stood out to me. First, one of the points that the gentleman made was that in flight, they have a saying, right? If you aim for nothing, you're guaranteed to hit nothing, which seems very intuitive, but for as cliche as it might sound, it's not as intuitive as you think it might be. Second, he said you have to start with the end in mind. And this is a concept that is not new to me. I'd heard of it before, but hearing it again in this context at this moment really had me reflecting on myself a lot. It's like you have to identify what it is and who you want to be 5 years, 10 years down the road. And then you have to line up your present to get you to that goal, to meet up with that goal. You know, I realized, and I'll admit, it was not an easy realization that my target in life is actually too broad. My plan sounds good, generally speaking, but when I thought about it, it's like, man, these plans are kind of getting me out into open space, but I don't know what the landing strip is. And we kind of talked about how you can take off anywhere as easy as anything. But if you don't have a target, you're not going to know if you have enough fuel to get there, because where is there anyway? What I do know is that I don't want to aim for nothing, and I don't want to live a life that seems to be aimed at everything and nothing at the same time. I do know elements of what I want to do. I know elements of the things that I want to do, of the life that I want to live, but I don't know exactly what that looks like. So in the moment, for me, it's hard to line up what my present should look like. And the reality is, as I keep thinking about these things, a lot of these questions could be answered if I knew what I was devoted to. I think in general, sure, I know what I'm devoted to, but on the micro level, on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute level, I don't think that I've honed down on that completely just yet. I think of some of the struggles that I've had since being back in the States, and I would admit that those reveal to me that there's a lack of like a focused devotion, and I'm glad to be aware of it. And I'm also glad that I'm in a place where I have the resource to help myself get closer to my center, like that core of who I really am, and to the path that it would put me on as a result. I've always had so many different and broad interests, and it's tough to bring it down, you know? This summer, I actually started the process of trying to figure out more of who I want to be and what I want to be. And, you know, I've always kind of been a jack of all trades type, but there are areas that I actually want to improve and get better in. But that's going to cost me time and energy and ability in other areas. What I find myself to be devoted to, and what I determine myself to be devoted to, is the very thing that's going to impact what abilities I have that are able to grow more, and also which abilities don't grow as much, if at all. You do win some things when you discover and pursue what you're devoted to, for sure. And you do lose other things when you discover and pursue what you're devoted to as well. But honestly, living a life without devotion, it's like treading water for the sake of treading water. It's not going to get you anywhere unless you stop and actually swim in a direction. It reminds me of when I was getting scuba certified in Palau. I knew from the beginning that the worst part, the most difficult part for me of that training was going to be treading water. You had to do it for 10 minutes. And let me tell you, I got lucky that water was salt water. It wasn't enough for me to float, because everywhere except the Dead Sea, I've sunk to the bottom like a rock. But what I can tell you is, man, it felt endless. It was exhausting, and it felt pointless, me just sitting there trying to tread water for 10 minutes. Obviously, I was able to get it done. Praise God. But in the moment, man, it wasn't taking me anywhere. You know what I'm saying? When I was done, I was very quick swimming back to that boat. Better believe it. But in the moment, nah. Treading water for the sake of treading water was not it wasn't doing anything for me. That's a lot to think about. Okay, so it's interesting because in a meeting I had with the gymnastics coaches for this year, we sat for about an hour ruminating on what the theme for this year was going to be. We had a lot of great options and a lot of good discussion, but the theme we settled on was simply devoted. I've never believed in coincidence, And I think that was a message as much for the team as it would be for me as the chaplain, definitely for me individually. And as the prospective chaplain for the team, I earned the task of coming up with a worship thought, or kind of just a way to present the theme the next day. And so I'm going to share with you now the ideas that I shared with the team. You know, when we look at the world today, whether it's in political views, social standards, physical image, moral areas, society is always trying to convince you of something that is worth investing in, representing, and supporting. And often at the expense of something else in terms of identity. And it's sad because, you know, we're happy that this is the information age. There's been a lot of great developments that have come from this time period, but you could almost equally and perhaps even more accurately call it the age of misinformation. So, you know, in the last episode, we highlighted the fact that people are struggling now more than ever to decide what is really truth, what can they really trust, what is worth committing to, and what do they really want to represent in their lives. People are more aware that maybe to an extent that the things that they do and the things that they say might tell you more about them than they would want to reveal, or maybe the things that they don't want to reveal about themselves. But while I'm thinking about that, I know there are times where we don't think about it, right? Because we put out images out there on social media. We might say things on Twitter, and we're actually revealing to other people the things that we're really about, whether we realize it or not. So something I wanted to encourage the team to do this year, and something that I really want to do on a personal level myself this year, is to realize, both for myself and both for the sake of, and also for the sake of the people out around me, that being devoted, like it's what is it exactly? I want to explore what it truly means to be devoted to something, and perhaps even better options of things in life that we can be devoted to. I think that's something that all of us can look forward to embracing this year. We should want to use our platforms, be it social media, Twitter, our interactions with people, our jobs, whatever those platforms might be. We should want to use our platforms to explore and to promote this idea of what it truly means to be devoted. So our text for the gymnastics team this year is Romans 12. Yes, the entire chapter. But we did focus on verse 12 to start. And it says this: be joyful in hope, be patient in affliction, and be faithful in prayer. And don't worry, we're going to get to the rest of it later, but this is such a striking place to start, even though it's more than halfway through the chapter, right? Because being joyful in hope, you can be hopeful, but you may not be joyful while you're hoping for something, right? I believe that the only way that you can be joyful with positive expectation in the midst of waiting is by knowing what you're devoted to. If you don't know what you're devoted to, it's impossible to eagerly anticipate something. It's impossible to be optimistic about it because you have no reference point for it. What about being patient as you suffer? Patient in affliction? How many of you have gone through a hard time? Yeah, everybody, I know. How many of you have gone through those moments with a smile on your face, with patience, understanding that things are going to work out in a way that could be a benefit to you? How many of you have been patient during suffering that doesn't even end up being completely in your favor? It's hard. It's hard. My family's going through some stuff right now that is hard. It's hard. But to have a joyful hope, you can't have that unless you know what or who you're devoted to. And the last element of being faithful in prayer. Now that's, I'm not talking about just, thank you, God, for this food. Thank you for waking me up. Like, I'm not talking about the habit or the habitual prayers. I'm talking about praying to God as if something can happen, believing that what you say is not just a formality, but something that can change your existence for the better. And not necessarily because it's about you getting what you want, but because your connection with God can really put you in a better frame of mind to deal with the suffering of the world. I don't think you can have true faith in prayer unless you know who you are devoted to. When you think about where you are in life, where you're going, what your goals are, does it feel like you're just treading water? Or are you swimming with a purpose? Do you have a target in mind? Or are you just shooting arrows up into the sky? Those things could land anywhere and back on you too, mind you. It's easy to start something new, even with energy and a lot of positivity. But do you know where you plan to land in the future? Are you checking the gauges to make sure that you have the fuel to get there because you know where there is? I don't know if I have all the answers to these questions. In fact, I do know that I don't. But what I know is that I'm going to find out. This is my time. This is my opportunity to buckle down, to get serious, and to figure out where I'm supposed to land. Not trying to fly aimless. And it's so necessary because once I do, no amount of turbulence or rough air or any in-flight issues are going to keep me from getting there. It's my hope to live my life devoted. And I hope that it's your hope as well. Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode. Like and share this with somebody to get the message out there. Follow Ngoriakl, that's Ngoriiakl on YouTube and Instagram. That's Ngoriiakl. And follow Go the Mission on all your podcast platforms. Help the movement to grow. It doesn't cost you anything, but maybe you'll gain something from it. And as always, to exist, it's not enough. We out here to be out here. So until next time, let it do what it do, baby.